Sir, please, my little brothers, they're still inside." The desperate voice of a little girl cut through the chaos like a knife. Her braids were soaked from the fire truck's spray, ash clinging to her cheeks as she tugged at the pant leg of Firefighter Darius King. "Back up, sweetheart. You can't be this close to the house," Darius said firmly, motioning to another firefighter, but the girl wouldn't let go. "Please, sir, they're only 5. We were sleeping and then the smoke came. I pulled them to the living room, but they said they forgot their bunny and went back. I couldn't get them out." She sobbed, hiccuping on every word. Darius froze. Children inside, alone. The fire had already devoured half the house. The front collapsed minutes ago. The heat was unbearable, smoke choking the air. "Chief!" one of his men yelled. "We're losing the back window. Whole structure's unstable." But Darius didn't hesitate. "Mask! Now!" Within seconds, he was suited back up, ignoring the screams from his team and sprinting toward the side entry. He kicked down a flimsy back door, ducked under the falling drywall, and pushed into the blackness. Smoke clawed at his throat even through the respirator. He could barely see. "Hello!" he shouted. "Somebody call out!" A faint whimper came from behind the dining table. "Stay right there! I'm coming to get you!" He dropped to his knees and crawled beneath the collapsed ceiling beam. Under the table, he found 2 boys clinging to each other. One had his foot twisted in a fallen lamp cord. The other was sobbing, clutching a torn bunny rabbit to his chest. "It's okay, I got you now." He scooped both boys up, no time to untangle the cord. The child screamed as his ankle twisted, but Darius gritted his teeth and ran. Flames licked down the hallway as the roof buckled behind him. "Move! Move!" Voices screamed outside. He burst out the back, crashing to the ground as a chunk of the roof exploded above. His teammates rushed in, dragging him and the boys to safety. The girl ran toward them, nearly tripping over herself as she threw her arms around her brothers. "Micah! Miles! You're okay!" Darius pulled off his helmet, panting heavily, drenched in sweat and smoke. And then he looked at them. The triplets. Same eyes, same deep brown skin, same curly textures, tight coils falling over their little foreheads. Something hit him in the chest. Hard. He didn't understand why, but as they clung together crying, he couldn't look away. He felt like he'd seen them before, felt them before. But how could that be? He didn't know their names, didn't know their mother, didn't even know who lived in that burning house. And yet, his heart was pounding like it had recognized something his brain hadn't. Later that night, back at the fire station, Darius sat alone in the locker room, staring at his reflection. His face was soot-streaked, and his arms were bruised. But it wasn't the pain that had him rattled. It was the girl's voice. "Sir, please, my brothers." He clenched his jaw. Those kids were way too young to be on their own like that. And that little girl, so brave, so protective. She reminded him of someone he'd buried in memory. He leaned back against the bench and looked up at the ceiling. 5 years, he whispered. It's been 5 damn years since I saw her. And he didn't even know why she disappeared. Across town, in the pediatric wing of the city hospital, Amara Ellis held her children tightly. Malaya lay curled up beside her, while Micah and Miles were asleep on the other hospital bed. "God, thank you for saving them," Amara whispered, wiping tears from her face. She had no idea who the firefighter was. Not yet. But when she found out, her world would come undone. Amara Ellis. The nurse's voice was gentle, but Amara's heart was thundering in her chest as she stood. "Yes, ma'am," she answered, tightening her hold on her daughter's hand. "Your boys are stable, minor smoke inhalation, no burns. They'll be discharged by morning," the nurse said, with a reassuring smile. "But if I may say, your little girl, she's the reason they're alive. Brave thing. And the firefighter who pulled them out, he's a real hero." Amara forced a shaky smile. "Can you tell me his name?" she asked quietly. "Darius King. You might have heard of him. Captain of Engine 14. He's been with the city for 10 years now." Amara's breath caught in her throat. Darius King. It felt like the walls caved in. Her vision blurred. She didn't say a word, just gave a small nod and walked back into the room, knees trembling. Micah and Miles were curled up in their hospital bed, a nurse checking their oxygen levels. Malia sat beside them, coloring on the provided activity sheet. "Mama, do you think that fireman got hurt?" she asked, eyes wide. "No, baby, I think he's okay," Amara replied, running her hand through her daughter's braids. She wanted to believe it, needed to believe it, but right now, her entire past had just been thrown back in her face. Darius, the man she had loved, the man who never showed up, never called, who disappeared from her life the moment she told his mother she was pregnant, 5 years ago. Amara stood in the grand foyer of the King estate, hands shaking as she held her medical report. She had driven herself there on a stormy evening, her second-hand car stalling 3 times on the highway. "I need to speak with Darius," she had told his mother, Diane King, with a hopeful smile. "It's important." Diane looked at her like she was a bug under her heel. "Darius is going into the Academy's elite rescue unit. He doesn't need distractions from girls like you." "Girls like me?" Amara asked, stunned. "You think just because you went to the same college you're good enough? You're not, and he doesn't want a baby. He told me that himself." "That's a lie," Amara had cried. "He loves me. We talked about kids someday." Diane had smiled, but it never reached her eyes. "He changed his mind. Men do that." "Where is he?" Amara pleaded. "Gone. Assigned out of state. He left this morning." She extended a crisp white envelope. "Take this, for your trouble, and don't come back." Amara had stared at the cash, $10,000. Blood money. She left without taking a cent. Back in the hospital room, Amara blinked away the memory. She had raised her babies alone. No help, no support. She worked 3 jobs, lost nights of sleep, gave up her dreams so her kids could eat. And now Darius King, savior of the city, was their hero. Her hands clenched into fists. He didn't deserve that title, not from them, not from her. The next morning, "Mummy, can we give the fireman a thank you card?" Malaya asked sweetly as they packed up to leave. Amara hesitated. "We don't even know where to find him, baby." "The nurse said he's at Station 14, Micah piped in. "Yeah, and I drew a picture of us holding hands with him," Miles added, proudly holding up a scribbled crayon drawing. Amara stared at it, 3 tiny figures and a tall man in a red helmet. She felt like her heart cracked down the middle. 2 hours later, Amara stood across the street from Station 14. "Mummy, can we go give this to him now?" "You go," she whispered, pushing the kids gently forward. They ran across to the station shouting, "Mr. Fireman, we have something for you." Darius was in the middle of washing the engine. He turned, and the smile he gave the kids was natural, easy, pure. But then his eyes lifted and saw her, Amara. He blinked, unsure. Then his smile faltered. She stood there, arms crossed, black curls loose, skin glowing against the sunlight, expression guarded. "Amara," he murmured. She said nothing. She only turned, walked away, and got back into the car. Darius felt a cold chill ripple through his chest as the kids ran back with empty hands, confused. Who was she?" he whispered to himself, but deep inside, he already knew. "You look like you've seen a ghost, bro." Marcus, one of Darius's fellow firefighters, clapped him on the back as he wiped down the station's engine truck. Darius didn't answer. He just kept staring at the corner where she had stood. Amara. It had been 5 years since he last saw her face. 5 years since she vanished without a word. And now, out of nowhere, she showed up. Her face the same, her eyes sharper, angrier. And those kids... No, it couldn't be. He shook his head and turned away, brushing sweat off his brow. Later that day, Amara dropped the kids off at her neighbor's apartment and walked down the cracked pavement toward the community grocery store. The sun was brutal, and her nerves were worse. She didn't see the fire truck idling by the hydrant until she turned the corner and stopped cold. Darius was leaning against the side panel, water bottle in hand, watching her like he'd been waiting for her. Amara. She almost turned around, but her pride held her in place. Captain King, she replied, voice clipped. I didn't know it was you, at the hospital, not until I saw your face yesterday. She crossed her arms. Didn't know I existed for the last 5 years either, huh? His jaw tensed. What happened? Why'd you leave? Why'd I leave? She laughed bitterly. I showed up at your parents' house to tell you I was pregnant. Your mama said you were done with me, gone. She gave me money to disappear. Darius stared, stunned silent. She told you I left? You mean you didn't? Amara snapped. No, I never even knew you were pregnant. You think I'd disappear on you like that? On my child? The truth hit her like a punch. He wasn't lying. His eyes said everything, but it didn't erase what she'd lived through. It's too late, Darius, she whispered. They're 5 years old. You weren't there. I was. Darius stepped forward. Those kids I saved, those were mine. Amara's eyes welled up, but she turned her head before the tears fell. Their names are Micah, Miles, and Malia. And yes, they're yours, whether you want them or not. She turned to leave. Wait, he called out. Why didn't you try to find me after? She froze. Because I was tired of begging to be loved by a man whose family saw me as disposable. That night, Darius sat on his apartment balcony, a bottle of water in one hand, a photo of him and Amara from college in the other. They were smiling in that photo, happy, young, in love. He thought back to the day he left for the academy assignment. His mother had told him Amara was too focused on school, that she needed space, that she wasn't serious about building a life. He believed her. He never heard Amara tried to visit, never saw a letter, never got a call. Now, 5 years later, he found out he was a father to 3 children, and he missed every moment. The next morning, Amara opened her classroom door to find a surprise waiting. 3 backpacks, brand new, fully packed with supplies. A note was tucked inside one of them. For Micah, Miles, and Malia, if I can't take back the lost years, at least let me help now. Darius. Amara held the note, her hands trembling. Her throat tightened with emotion. She hadn't told him where the kids went to school, but somehow he found out. Meanwhile, at the station, Darius stared at the phone number scribbled on the back of the kid's crayon drawing. He hadn't called yet, couldn't bring himself to. He needed to be sure, so he grabbed his phone, scrolled to an old contact, and called a private clinic. Hi, I need a paternity test, for me and 3 children. Are you sure you want to go through with this? The nurse glanced at Darius as he stood in the quiet clinic hallway, his jaw tight and his eyes stormy. Yes, his voice was gravel. I need to know for sure. He could still see their faces in his mind, Micah's shy smile, Miles's curious stare, Malia's fierce little eyes, the way they held each other, the way his heart had thundered the moment they hugged him after the fire. It didn't make sense. It shouldn't make sense. But deep inside, something screamed that it did. 2 days earlier, he'd parked down the block from Amara's apartment, just watching. He didn't go up, didn't knock. He only wanted to see them. From his truck, he saw the front door open. Amara stepped out in a worn denim jacket, adjusting the straps on Malaya's backpack. The girl clung to her side. Then came the boys, Micah with a lunch bag, Miles running and spinning in a circle with his shoelaces untied. They looked like a unit, like they'd raised each other, like they didn't have a father, because they didn't, not until now. Darius gripped the steering wheel so tightly, his knuckles turned white. He'd missed all of it. First steps, first words, first fevers, first birthdays. He watched Amara kneel down to fix Miles's laces, her hand moving gently over his curls, and suddenly Darius felt it, something hollow cracking open in his chest, a kind of grief he didn't have a name for. Back at the clinic, Darius sat in the waiting room, bouncing his knee, hands clasped. The results wouldn't be ready for a few more days, but he already knew. Every instinct in his body, firefighter, man, soul, told him the truth. Meanwhile, at her small apartment, Amara was folding laundry when Malaya walked in, holding a drawing. "Mommy, is this us?" she asked, pointing to the crayon figures. Amara smiled. "Yeah, baby, that's you, your brothers, and me." "Where's Daddy?" Malaya asked quietly. Amara froze. "Why doesn't our daddy live with us?" She sat down slowly and pulled her daughter into her lap. "Because life didn't go the way we planned, but you're not missing anything, okay? You've got me and your brothers. That's enough." But even as she said it, Amara knew it wasn't entirely true. Darius's face had returned to her dreams, to her thoughts, and her heart wasn't made of stone. Later that night, Darius stood on his porch staring at a box labeled College Memories. He hadn't opened it in years. Inside was the photo he kept on his phone, plus letters Amara had written before things fell apart, notes tucked into his bag when he was training, a card she made for his birthday. There was even a baby onesie. He'd forgotten he once told her he wanted kids. "A little girl with your smile," he'd whispered back then, "and twin boys who act like me." He thought it was just a dream. Now he knew. He already had them. They were real, and he had missed everything. The next morning, Amara found herself standing at the community food bank, where she volunteered weekends. As she handed out meal bags, someone called her name. She turned, and her breath caught in her chest. Darius. He wore jeans and a grey fire department t-shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing burn-scarred forearms. He held a paper bag of donations and a shy, almost nervous smile. "I want to help," he said simply. Amara stared at him. He didn't say anything else, just walked over and started passing out food. All morning, they worked side by side in silence, until Malaya and the boys came running up. "Mr. Fireman!" they shouted in unison. Darius knelt, arms open, and all three kids barreled into his chest. Micah tugged on his sleeve. "Can you come to career day at school? My teacher said we need real-life heroes." Darius looked up at Amara. She didn't speak, but she didn't say no. Back at the clinic, 3 days later. The doctor handed him the envelope. Darius tore it open with shaking fingers. And there it was, Micah Ellis, 99.99%. Match Miles Ellis, 99.99%. Match Malaya Ellis, 99.99%. Match Darius sank into the chair, holding the results to his chest like they were oxygen. Tears slipped from the corners of his eyes. He wasn't just some fireman anymore. He was their father. "You're saying they're yours?" Amara's voice was low but sharp as broken glass. Her arms were crossed tightly, her posture stiff. They stood outside her apartment building, the sun dipping low in the horizon behind them, casting golden streaks across the cracked concrete steps. Darius held out the manila envelope. He didn't move closer. He knew better than to touch her without permission. I didn't come here to start anything. I just want you to see the results." Amara stared at the envelope like it was a venomous snake. Slowly, she took it. Her eyes skimmed the documents. Then again, she didn't breathe. Not until the words burned into her skull. Micah Ellis, 99.99%. Match Miles Ellis, 99.99%. Match Malia Ellis, 99.99%. Match. Her throat tightened. "So now you believe me?" Darius flinched. "It's not that I didn't believe you. I just needed to face it, to stop doubting, to know. And now I do." Amara folded the envelope and tucked it under her arm. "You know what it doesn't change?" she said quietly. 5 birthdays, 3 hospital stays, 6 rent notices, 15 nights with no power, every damn tear they shed, asking why they didn't have a dad like the other kids. Darius looked down. "I know I wasn't there, Amara, but I didn't leave you. I didn't know. Your mother knew." Her voice rose, face tightening with fury. "And that's all that mattered." He closed the distance between them just a little. "You think I would have let you raise them alone if I knew? That I would have let you suffer through this?" She stared at him for a long, bitter moment. "You let me suffer by trusting her over me." Silence fell between them. Darius turned away, dragging a hand through his short curls. His voice dropped low, trembling. "She told me you left to be with someone else, that you said you weren't ready for a real life, that you ghosted me. I was angry, hurt, and then I got called to train in Louisiana. I didn't look back because I thought you didn't want me anymore." Amara's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "You believed her. That's the part I can't forgive. You believed her without ever hearing me out. She never told me you came by. She never told me you were pregnant. She lied. I should have seen it, but I didn't. You didn't want to." Her words landed like slaps, but she wasn't wrong. The wind picked up around them. Darius looked back at her. Her beauty was more grounded now. Less girl next door, more warrior mother. Her curves were fuller, her face matured, the fire in her eyes a little darker. She wasn't the same Amara, and neither was he. "I want to be in their lives." His voice was softer now. "I know I can't make up for 5 years, but I want to start where I can." "That's not up to me." Darius blinked. "Then who?" "Them." Amara held his gaze. "They decide whose family, not some DNA test, not me, not even you." Her words hit like a gut punch. He nodded slowly. "Then I'll show them who I am, not because I want to feel better, but because they deserve to know the truth, and to know their father didn't walk away." She studied him. There was a sincerity in his face that couldn't be faked, a brokenness she hadn't seen before. "Then start with the truth," she said coldly. "Go ask your mother what else she lied about, because I guarantee you, there's more under those ashes." Later that evening, Darius sat parked outside the King family estate, an immaculate white brick colonial, sitting like a queen on a throne in the highlands of Fairview. He hadn't been here in 2 years, not since his last argument with his mother over his choice to remain a firefighter instead of moving into corporate property development. Now, standing on the porch, he rang the bell. The sound echoed like thunder in his chest. The door opened. Diane King, regal in a silk blouse and cream slacks, froze when she saw him. "Darius." She smiled, but it was tight. "What a surprise." "We need to talk." Inside the sitting room, the walls were still decorated with family portraits and Christian art. Everything pristine, everything fake. "I know, Mom," Darius said flatly. Diane blinked, all pretense melting. "Know what? That Amara came to see you, that she was pregnant, that you sent her away and lied to me." Diane's mouth parted slightly. She set down her glass of wine with trembling fingers. "She wasn't right for you, Darius. She would have ruined everything you'd worked for." She was carrying my children, he exploded. The sound of his voice shook the walls. 3 of them, Mom, and I didn't even know they existed until I pulled them out of a fire. Diane sat slowly. You don't understand. That girl was poor, ambitious. She would have drained you. She raised my children in a 1-bedroom apartment while working 2 jobs. She didn't ask you for anything. She didn't take your money. She walked away with nothing but her pride. Tears welled in his mother's eyes. I only wanted to protect you. You were so close to your dream. You destroyed it, he whispered. You took away 5 years I'll never get back. He turned away from her then. She reached out. Please, Darius, don't walk away. I'm not walking away. He looked over his shoulder, jaw trembling. I'm walking toward my family. And then he left and didn't look back. The next day, Amara stood in front of the classroom blackboard, chalk in hand, but her mind was elsewhere. She hadn't slept much. She kept picturing Darius's face, the raw pain, the anger, the guilt, and something else, something she hadn't seen in years. Love. The bell rang. The kids filed in. Then a knock at the door. She turned, and there he was, wearing his station uniform, clean-shaven, holding 3 small lunch bags, and a sheepish smile. I know this is bold, but I figured they might want to eat with me, if it's okay. The class erupted in oohs and giggles. Micah, Miles, and Malia's faces lit up like the sun. Mr. Darius, they ran into his arms before Amara could say a word, and in that moment, for just a second, she saw something she never thought she'd see again. A family, whole, if only for a lunch hour. Micah, pass me the orange one, Miles yelled across the living room floor, where they were sprawled with crayons, construction paper, and glue sticks. No, I need it first, Micah shot back, clutching it tightly. I'm drawing Mr. D in his fireman suit. Malia rolled her eyes and reached across both of them. You both need to chill. I'm making a thank you card, not a comic book. She pushed a lock of hair behind her ear, carefully writing out, Thank you, Mr. Darius. You saved us. Amara stood in the kitchen, a dish rag in her hand, frozen as she watched from a distance. Her heart tugged at the sound of his name. She had only allowed 2 visits, and already, he was embedded in them. They spoke about him like he was part of the family, but he wasn't, not yet. That evening, while folding laundry, she found a small piece of notebook paper under Malia's bed. At first, she thought it was schoolwork, but then she read the words, clumsily scrawled in crayon. Dear God, if Mr. D is our real daddy, can you make him stay? Her chest ached. She sat on the bed slowly, holding the note to her heart. She wanted to cry, but she couldn't. Not in front of the kids, not when they were finally feeling happy. But deep inside, she was terrified, because for the first time in 5 years, her kids were falling in love with a man, and it was a man who had the power to break their hearts. The next morning, as they got ready for school, Malia stood in front of the mirror braiding her own hair. Mommy, she asked casually, did you ever like Mr. Darius? Amara paused, mid-toast, nearly burning the bread. What makes you ask that? Malia shrugged. I don't know. He looks at you weird, like how Elijah looks at Chi-Chi when she shares her snacks with him at school. Amara laughed, despite herself. Well, maybe Mr. D just respects me. Nope. Malia shook her head confidently. He looks like he likes you. Like, maybe you were a girlfriend before. Micah poked his head around the corner. Were you, though? Miles jumped in. Yeah, is that why he knows our names already? Amara stared at her 3 kids, wide-eyed, curious and sharper than they had any right to be at that age. Mr. D is someone I knew a long time ago, she said slowly. Before you 3 were born. So you were in love? Miles gasped. That's not what I said. So, is he our daddy? Malia interrupted, dead serious. The question hit the room like a thunderclap. Everything stopped. Amara set down her coffee cup. She knelt and looked them each in the eye. If he were, what would you think about that? The boys exchanged a glance. Micah shrugged. Cool, I guess. Miles said, Would that mean we get to see him more? Malia tilted her head. I already knew it. She smiled proudly. His eyes look like ours, and his ears do that pointy thing when he smiles like Miles's ears. Amara let out a shaky laugh. You all are too much. Come on, get your shoes on. You're going to be late. But even as she moved around the house preparing them, her thoughts were spiraling. They were not ready. She wasn't sure she was either. At school, career day was buzzing with excitement. Police officers, chefs, mechanics, even a dentist, all were lined up outside the classrooms. When Darius walked in, tall, confident in his navy uniform and badge shining, heads turned. Micah, Miles, and Malia jumped out of their seats. Mr. D, they shouted, nearly knocking their chairs over. He grinned. Whoa, I'm just the fire guy. Relax. The teacher welcomed him up front. Class, this is Captain Darius King. He's the firefighter who saved our very own Triplets last month. Applause broke out. The Triplets beamed with pride. Darius gave his speech, showing the kids how to stop, drop, and roll, explaining what firefighters do, letting them try on a tiny helmet. But it was the moment he shared why he became a firefighter that made Amara freeze in the hallway. I became a firefighter because I lost someone once, someone I loved, and I realized that if I could help keep others safe, maybe I could save someone else's someone. He glanced toward the open door, where Amara stood, eyes wide. And if I had the chance to do it all over again, I'd fight harder to keep that person in my life. His voice cracked slightly. The children didn't notice, but Amara did. Her heart twisted. After school, the Triplets couldn't stop talking about him. He let us touch the oxygen tank. He told me I was strong enough to carry a hose. He said Malia was brave like a firefighter already. Amara smiled, but her silence was growing. That night, when they were finally asleep, she stepped out onto the small balcony, wrapping her cardigan tightly around her. Darius was downstairs in his truck, waiting. She had called him. I need to talk to you. Now, as he stepped out and leaned against the hood, the night air between them was thick with unspoken tension. They asked me today, she said, if you were their father. Darius looked up sharply. What did you say? I said you were someone I knew a long time ago. But they're not dumb. They know. They feel it. He nodded slowly. Then let them know the rest. Please, Amara, I'll answer every question. I'll show up for every game, every school play. I don't care how long it takes. I just want the chance to be who I should have always been. She studied him carefully. He looked different now. Not the boy she once knew. This Darius had seen fire, real and emotional, and come out burned but standing. One question, she said. He nodded. Are you ready to be a father, even if they never call you Dad? His breath caught, but his answer was steady. Yes. She walked over slowly and handed him a folded paper. Inside, it was a schedule of the kids' after-school programs, pick-up times, teacher names, allergies. Darius unfolded it like it was a sacred document. He looked up, and in her voice, quiet but firm, she added, Welcome to the hard part. So, if Mr. D is our real daddy, why wasn't he here when we were babies? Malia's question sliced through the quiet dinner table like a blade. She asked it so innocently, cheeks full of rice, her little leg swinging off the dining chair. Amara dropped her spoon. Micah stopped mid-bite. Miles looked at their mother, waiting for her to answer. Amara swallowed hard. She had been preparing for this conversation, but not tonight. Not while the meat was still warm, not with the boys still in their pajamas from after-school snack hour. "That's a big question," she said gently, "and it deserves a big answer." "But we're big kids," Miles said proudly, puffing out his chest. "We're almost 6. Amara smiled faintly and nodded. She got up from the table, walked to the side closet, and pulled down a dusty shoebox wrapped in duct tape. She had once planned to open this when they were 10, maybe older, but kids had a way of unearthing the truth faster than you were ready. She set the box on the table and peeled the tape off slowly. Inside were old photos, a few ultrasound prints, and a folded letter she never sent. "This is Mr. D. She held up a college graduation photo of her and Darius, arm in arm, laughing at something only they remembered. We loved each other very much back then. We dreamed of having a family, of raising you 3 together." "Then what happened?" Micah asked, eyes wide. Amara looked down, fingers brushing the edges of the photo. "When I found out I was pregnant, I went to his house. I wanted to tell him right away, but I didn't find him. I found his mother." Malaya frowned. "Grandma?" "His mother. Your grandma," Amara clarified. She didn't like me very much, and she didn't want me to be part of his life. So she told me lies, said Darius didn't love me anymore, that he left town, that he didn't want us." Micah blinked. "So, she lied?" Amara nodded. "Yes, and I believed her." Her voice cracked. "I was scared. I had no one. I thought he knew and didn't care. So I raised you all by myself." The room was quiet. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall. "But now he's back," Miles whispered, "and he said he wants to be our daddy." "He does," Amara replied, her voice tight. "And I believe him. But that decision isn't just mine anymore. It's yours, too." Across town, Darius was pacing in his apartment. The living room was littered with kids' toys he'd bought, and then second-guessed giving. Clothes he'd ordered online sat unopened. He didn't want to overstep. Not yet. His phone buzzed. A message from Amara. "They know." No emojis, no punctuation. But he knew exactly what it meant. They'd asked, and she told them. He sat on the couch, phone still in hand, stomach twisted in knots. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, then typed, "Are they okay?" The reply came almost immediately, confused, quiet, but not angry. Then, after a pause, "They want to see you tomorrow, after school." His heart leapt. The next day, Darius stood outside their school in a crisp polo and jeans, trying to steady his breathing. He had fought flames taller than buildings, pulled people from wreckage, walked through hell more than once, but nothing, not even crawling through burning rafters, terrified him like this moment. The school bell rang. Micah came out first, holding Miles's hand. Malaya followed, eyes trained on him. They all stopped a few feet away. "Hi," he said gently. No one spoke. Then Malaya stepped forward. Her little face was serious. "Did you know about us?" Darius crouched to her level. "No, baby girl, I didn't. If I had, I would have been there, every day, for all of you." "Why didn't you look for us?" Micah asked, stepping closer. Darius hesitated. "Because I thought your mum left me. I thought she moved on, that she didn't want me to be part of her life." "But you believed your mommy instead of ours," Malaya said plainly. That stung. "Yes," he admitted, "I made that mistake. I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't fight hard enough, and that's something I'll regret forever." Miles reached up and touched Darius's face with his small hand. "You don't feel like a stranger," he said. "You feel like somebody I missed before I knew I missed them." Tears threatened to rise in Darius's throat, but he swallowed hard. "Can I hug you?" he asked quietly. All three nodded at once. He opened his arms and they rushed him, wrapping around his neck, laughing, crying, clutching their hero daddy like they'd known all along. Amara stood by the car watching them, hand on her heart, eyes shimmering. For the first time in years, she saw something beautiful bloom where pain once lived. Later that evening, they sat on a blanket at the park, eating fried chicken and biscuits from the corner takeout. Darius had brought coloring books. He even tried to braid Malia's hair, poorly. They told him stories about their fears, their dreams, their imaginary friend named Mr. Marshmallow who used to guard them while they slept. "That's your job now," Malia said, climbing into his lap. "It always was," Darius whispered. But not everything was fixed. That night, after the kids fell asleep, Darius helped Amara clean the kitchen. He dried the dishes while she wiped down the counter. "They're falling fast for you," she said, without looking at him. "I know," he replied softly, "and I'm terrified I'll disappoint them." She set down the rag and turned to face him. "Then don't." He nodded, then cautiously, "I know I messed up, Amara, but I still love you." She stiffened, eyes narrowing. "Don't." "I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to say it, because it's true. I never stopped." She shook her head, laughing bitterly. "You don't get to say that like time stood still, like nothing happened. I lost everything back then. My dignity, my support, my peace. I buried myself in motherhood just to survive." "I know." "No, you don't," she snapped. "You're here now because fate forced your hand, not because you earned your way back. So don't say you love me unless you're ready to fight for me the way I fought for them." Darius stepped back, wounded, but he didn't argue. He just picked up his keys, gave one last look toward the hallway where his children slept, and said, "Then I'll fight, every day, for as long as it takes." And with that, he left, quietly, respectfully. Leaving Amara alone in the kitchen, tears on her cheeks, and something soft cracking open inside her chest. Hope. What is all this? Amara stood on her apartment doorstep, blinking against the morning sun. Darius stood in front of her, sleeves rolled up, jeans dusty, and behind him, two men from his firehouse unloading a flatbed truck. "Good morning," Darius grinned. "Didn't want to bother you last night, but I figured your kitchen faucet's leaking, the screen on your back window is broken, and your stair railing's wobbly." Amara crossed her arms, not impressed. "So now you're a handyman too?" "Just a dad with a toolkit," he said, brushing past her with a box of tools and a crooked smile that made her heart betray her for one quick second. "You didn't ask to fix anything. And you didn't ask to raise 3 kids alone. Let me do something now, Amara. Let me show up." She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped. The truth in his voice dulled her defenses. "Fine, but only the faucet, and the railing, not the bathroom sink. I've already mastered its attitude." Darius chuckled. "Got it, ma'am. Faucet and railing only." But she should have known he wouldn't stop there. By mid-morning, the kids were up and climbing all over him like he was their personal jungle gym. Micah showed him how to make pancakes using only the burnt edges. Miles was determined to teach him a TikTok dance, and Malia kept asking him to braid her doll's hair, the right way this time. By noon, the leaking faucet was replaced, the railing was reinforced, and Darius was covered in sweat, syrup, and glitter. "You sure you don't want a nap?" Amara teased from the kitchen as he took a break on the floor. "I've fought 5 alarm fires with less chaos," he groaned, eyes closing as Micah and Miles jumped over his legs like hurdles. "Well, these fires talk back and ask for snacks every 5 minutes," Amara replied, smirking. He opened one eye to look at her. "You've been doing this solo for 5 years. 5 years, 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days, she replied without hesitation. Darius sat up slowly. Then you're the strongest person I've ever met. That night, he went home to his apartment exhausted, aching, but lighter than he'd felt in years. He flipped open a notebook and started writing. A schedule, a list of responsibilities, ideas for co-parenting, therapists for children of absentee fathers, a fire safety plan for their apartment complex, and maybe someday, a college fund. The next week, Darius started volunteering at the kids' school. Every Thursday, he hosted fire safety and life lessons, hour with grades K through 3. He taught them how to escape a smoke-filled room, how to dial 911, and how to stay calm in an emergency. But for Micah, Miles, and Malia, it meant more. "Mr. D is my dad," Micah whispered proudly one day during class. The teacher blinked. "I didn't know that." "Me neither," Miles added, chewing on a pencil. "But we're pretty sure, 'cause he shows up every time now." Meanwhile, Darius had also quietly gone to work on the apartment building. Using his own savings and some favors from his firehouse, he replaced the hallway smoke detectors, fixed the faulty wiring in the stairwell, and added reflective exit signs to the emergency doors. He even gave free fire safety kits to all tenants. Word spread fast. The building called him Super Dad. Amara just called him Relentless. One Thursday afternoon, she returned home from a long shift at school and found her old car parked in a different spot. It had a fresh coat of paint, new tires, and a repaired bumper. She stormed into the building, fire in her eyes. Darius was sitting on the couch, Malia asleep on his chest. "What did you do to my car?" she asked in a hushed, furious whisper. He looked up, calm. "It was unsafe. Bald tires, faulty brakes. You've got 3 kids in the back seat. I couldn't ignore it." "It's my car, Darius. You should have asked me." He nodded slowly. "You're right. I should have." She blinked, surprised at the lack of resistance. "So you're not gonna fight me on this?" "Nope. I made a mistake. I'm learning." Amara looked at him, studying him like a puzzle she couldn't solve. "Why are you doing all this?" "Because I missed 5 years of their lives. I'll never get those back, but I can make sure every day from now on is better than the last. And if that means fixing cars and coloring with glitter pens and learning how to braid, I'm doing it." She looked down at her daughter asleep on his chest. Her eyes softened. "You forgot dance recital practice is on Tuesdays," she muttered. Darius smiled. "Not anymore." Meanwhile, someone else was noticing the change. Chris, Amara's longtime friend and loyal neighbor, stood outside his apartment one evening and watched as Darius walked the kids up from the corner store, one on his shoulders, 2 holding each hand. He didn't like it. He didn't trust Darius, and he definitely didn't like the way Amara laughed more these days. That weekend, the triplets had their early birthday celebration at a local park. Amara had organized a simple picnic with homemade cupcakes and juice boxes, but Darius showed up with balloons, superhero capes, and custom t-shirts for each child that said, "Firefighter in training, property of Daddy." They wore them all day. At sunset, Amara called the kids over to blow out candles on a shared cake. "Make a wish," she said. Micah went first, then Miles, then Malia. They didn't say what they wished for, but later that night as they got into bed, Miles whispered to Amara, "We all wished for the same thing." "What's that, baby?" "To have a real family, all of us, together." "All right, everyone settle down." Amara clapped her hands over the soft chatter of excited children and nosy parents. The park's covered pavilion was decorated with paper lanterns, balloons tied to wooden beams, and a "Happy 6th Birthday Triplets" banner that sagged a little in the middle, but it was charming nonetheless. Cupcake towers stood on the picnic tables, Juice boxes were stacked like pyramids, and several tired-looking parents of schoolmates had gathered with gift bags, Tupperware, and toddlers in tow. But none of it compared to the 3 stars of the day, Micah, Miles, and Malia, wearing matching t-shirts that read, Team Triple Trouble, Official Birthday Edition. Amara had spent the entire week preparing everything herself. She had only let Darius in on it 2 days prior. She was still getting used to sharing space with him, let alone power over their kids' lives. Now she watched from behind the table as he walked up the hill, carrying a surprise in each hand. The triplets screamed in unison when they saw him. "Daddy!" 3 helium balloons flew above his head, each with their names printed in gold foil. "1 each, just like the 3 of you," he said, handing them off. Malia hugged him first. Micah tugged on his pants leg. Miles shouted, "You're just in time for the cupcakes." Amara couldn't help but smile, even as she rolled her eyes playfully. He gave her a look, warm, private. "Nice turnout," he said, nodding at the family's gathering. "I bribed half the school with brownies." He laughed. "Works every time." When it came time for the candles, the pavilion grew quiet. 3 cupcakes sat before them, each one topped with a tall sparkler candle that fizzed and hissed as the crowd counted down. 3, 2, 1. The triplets closed their eyes at the same time. Hands folded, silent wishes locked inside. Then they each blew out their candle. The crowd erupted into cheers, but Amara couldn't stop watching them. The way they'd made their wishes, so focused, so earnest, she knew something was different. Later that night, after the leftover cupcakes had been boxed, the decorations taken down, and the final goodbye waves exchanged, Amara stood in the kids' room, folding their birthday clothes into laundry baskets. The 3 of them sat cross-legged on the floor, munching their final bites of cake, whispering, until Malia spoke up. "Mommy?" "Yes, baby? Is it bad to wish for something, even if it might never happen?" Amara turned slowly. "Depends on the wish." Micah and Miles looked at each other, then at their sister, nodding. "We all made the same wish," Miles said seriously. "We didn't even tell each other before," Micah added. "It just happened." Amara knelt. "What did you wish for?" "To live with both our parents." Malia's voice was small, but confident. "We want our daddy to live here, with us, like a real family." Amara's breath caught. She sat back on her heels, heart pounding. "We like him," Micah said. "We love him," Miles corrected. "And he loves you," Malia added, "even when you act like you don't love him back." Amara blinked, stunned. "I don't act like—" "You roll your eyes every time he makes you laugh," Malia said, matter-of-factly. "And you smile behind his back." Amara opened her mouth to protest, then closed it again. They weren't wrong. The next morning, Amara found a handwritten letter slipped under her apartment door. She recognized Darius's handwriting right away. "Dear Amara, I don't want to push. I know I've broken a lot of trust, but I also know something has changed between us. If there's a way for us to try again, not just for the kids, but for us, I'm willing to do the work, every single day. Love, Darius." She stood with the letter in her hands for a long time, a very long time, then folded it carefully and tucked it into her journal. She didn't reply, not with words, but she made up an extra portion of lunch that day and dropped it into a lunchbox labeled Dad. Later that week, Darius showed up with his biggest surprise yet, tickets to a weekend getaway, a quiet cabin on Lake Marion, only 2 hours away. Nothing fancy, just family. "I know we're not there yet," he said cautiously, "but the kids deserve something special. No big crowds, just water, trees, stars, and marshmallows." Amara raised a brow. You trying to kidnap us into trusting you?" He laughed. "No, ma'am. Just applying for the job of full-time dad." She looked down at the tickets. "And what's my job in that plan?" He met her eyes, something raw in his voice. "Yours? You're the boss, the anchor, the reason I'm still standing." At the cabin, the kids shrieked with delight. There was a loft with bunk beds, a fire pit, and a canoe tied to a little wooden dock. Darius taught the boys how to paddle. Amara taught Malia how to toast marshmallows without lighting them on fire. That night, around the fire, the kids begged for a story. Darius started one, then let Amara finish it, and as the flames flickered across their faces, Amara saw something in him, something that used to live in her, long ago, home. Later, after the kids had fallen asleep curled on sleeping bags in the loft, Amara stepped out onto the porch to find Darius staring up at the stars. He handed her a blanket and a glass of wine. "Beautiful night," he murmured. She nodded. Then, slowly, "They made a wish to live with you." Darius turned. "I'd give anything to make that come true. Even if it means living under my rules," he smiled. "Amara, I'd sleep in a tent in your hallway if it meant being near them. And you." She looked away, but her voice cracked slightly. "They want us to be a family." He stepped closer. "And what do you want?" Silence. Then quietly, "I want to believe in love again. I want to stop living like I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop." Darius nodded, then took her hand gently. "Then let's stop waiting." She didn't pull away. For the first time, she let herself lean into him. Just a little. Just enough. "You've got company." The security guard at the school gate called over to Amara as she walked across the parking lot, arms full of student notebooks and worksheets. She turned, squinting against the midday sun, and her breath caught. Diane King. Tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy pantsuit, pearls glinting at her throat, sunglasses perched like a crown. Darius's mother stood there like she owned the pavement beneath her heels. "Hello, Amara," she said smoothly, removing her glasses. Amara didn't stop walking. "You're not welcome here." Diane fell into step beside her. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to see my grandchildren." Amara spun around. "You have grandchildren now? Funny, you didn't seem interested when I was 6 months pregnant and sobbing on your marble floor." Diane sighed. "That was a long time ago. And those 3 children have survived 5 birthdays without your flowers or phone calls, so forgive me if I don't give a damn about what was a long time ago." Diane's expression twisted. "You're poisoning them against me, I see. Just like you poisoned Darius." "Excuse me." "He's different now, obsessed, defiant. You've manipulated him into believing your version of the past." Amara took a step forward. "Your version is the one where I was disposable, where your son never knew he had children, where your lies kept us all apart. You don't get to rewrite the truth, Diane, not anymore." Diane's voice dropped low. "Do you really think this ends in your favor? You're just a woman he couldn't forget. That doesn't make you permanent." "Number. But being the mother of his children does." A few teachers walking by paused awkwardly at the tension. Amara turned without another word and walked away, fists clenched, but inside her stomach churned. The enemy hadn't disappeared. She was just waiting. Later that evening, Darius knocked on Amara's door, a bag of groceries in one arm and his firehouse jacket slung over the other. She opened the door with a hard look. "Your mother was at my school today." He blinked. "What?" "She came uninvited, unannounced, and she had the nerve to say I poisoned you against her." Darius set the groceries down and exhaled, his whole body tensing. "I told her to stay away from you. From the kids." Clearly, she didn't listen. He rubbed his jaw, pacing. "I'll talk to her. She won't come near you again. Amara folded her arms. I don't need you to talk, Darius. I need to know whose side you're on, fully, not halfway, not 1 foot in the door and 1 back at the estate. He stopped pacing. I already chose, the moment I held Micah and felt his heartbeat next to mine. When Malia hugged me like I belonged, when Miles cried because I missed one of his jokes, I chose you. I chose them. Then prove it. He frowned. How? She walked over, pulled a box from under the table, and opened it. Inside were documents, birth certificates, school records, medical forms, all signed by her alone. You want to be their father? Be it on paper, step into the role, not as a visitor, not as a friend, as their legal parent. Darius reached for the papers without hesitation. Where do I sign? Meanwhile, back at the King estate, Diane sat across from her husband in the study, sipping tea with trembling hands. He's not answering his phone anymore, she said. He's slipping away from us. That woman's taken everything. Mr. King, a quiet, conservative man who had always followed his wife's lead, set down his newspaper. Maybe he's simply becoming a father. Diane's eyes narrowed. He's becoming her soldier. Everything I warned about is happening. She was a trap from the beginning. Her husband shrugged. Perhaps she wasn't the villain. Maybe we were. She'll destroy our legacy, Diane whispered. He'll give up everything, the foundation, the trust, the company. Then maybe we didn't deserve him in the first place. Back in the neighborhood, Darius was already setting plans into motion. He scheduled a meeting with a family attorney to begin the process of joint custody. He sat down with the school principal to officially add his name to the emergency contact forms. He updated their health insurance coverage, added them to his beneficiary plan. Each act, no matter how mundane, felt like a puzzle piece falling into place. Micah noticed the change first. Why are you always at the house now? He asked during one of their evening walks. Are you going to live with us forever? Darius smiled. Only if you 3 can handle my terrible cooking and even worse dance moves. Miles chimed in. You make the best cereal. That counts. Malia tilted her head. Does this mean we're like an official family now? Darius paused, knelt in front of them. We've always been a family, but now I get to show up for you in every way I should have from the start. Malia hugged him first, then the boys piled on. That weekend, Amara received a letter in the mail from a private firm. She opened it on the porch, heart pounding. Inside was a formal notification. Christopher King Trust has been reassigned. Darius King has withdrawn himself as a primary heir. All assets relinquished, per his request. Amara sat down slowly. He had cut himself off from his family's wealth. He had chosen them, fully. The tears came fast. She didn't try to stop them. That evening, Darius walked into the apartment with his duffel bag slung over one shoulder. What's that? Amara asked. My clothes, some books, a framed photo. She narrowed her eyes. You moving in without permission? He grinned. I'm applying for tenant status, rent-free. In exchange, I offer nightly bedtime stories, laundry folding, and emotionally available fatherhood. She rolled her eyes. You left out trash duty. Negotiable, he teased. She crossed her arms. And what about me, Darius? What's your plan with me? He stepped closer, serious now. I'm still earning you, every day, but I'm not going anywhere, not unless you tell me to. Amara stared at him. Then with a deep breath, then bring your toothbrush, and don't hog the hot water. The smell of cinnamon rolls floated through the apartment like a warm embrace. Malaya stood on a kitchen stool, carefully icing each bun while Micah set the plates. Miles, of course, had already snuck 2 pieces into his mouth when he thought no one was watching. We can't eat until Daddy gets back, Malia announced, adjusting her little silk bonnet and folding her arms like a mini version of Amara. "I'm hungry now," Miles groaned. "He'll understand." "He said 10 minutes, Micah added, peeking out the window. "Firehouse check-in. He'll be back any sec." Amara leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold. A strange calm had settled in the apartment lately. Not silence. No, the triplets were always loud and alive. But a peace had crept into their routine. A wholeness. They were adjusting. To Darius. To the rhythm of being 5 instead of 4. And Amara, against her own will, was adjusting too. When Darius finally opened the front door, dressed down in a fitted black tee, dark jeans and boots, dusted from station grime, he was met with 3 loud cheers. "Daddy! We saved you the middle cinnamon roll." "It's the biggest one," he laughed, scooping up Miles with one arm and fist-bumping Micah with the other. "You kids trying to make me soft?" "Too late," Malia teased. "You already cry at bedtime stories." Amara raised an eyebrow. "You cried at the Velveteen Rabbit?" He pointed at her, mock stern. "That rabbit died, Amara. He died." The whole kitchen erupted in laughter. That evening, after the kids were tucked into bed, after their chorus of bedtime requests, a 10-minute wrestling match, and 2 return trips for water, Amara walked out onto the small balcony, blanket around her shoulders, mug of tea in hand. Darius was already out there, feet kicked up on the railing, looking out over the quiet neighborhood. "You gonna tell me what's on your mind?" he asked, not looking at her yet. She sat beside him, sipping her tea. "What makes you think something is?" "You folded the same blanket 5 times tonight." She chuckled, the sound soft and dry. "You notice everything now." "That's part of the job," he said. "I'm trying to earn my keep around here." Silence settled between them, but it wasn't the uncomfortable kind. Finally, Amara broke it. "I think I'm scared to be happy." Darius turned to her, his voice low. "You think that's strange, after everything you went through? You were abandoned, humiliated, stretched to your limits, and still raised 3 miracles." She smiled tightly. "And now you're here. It's like suddenly I'm allowed to breathe, and I don't know what to do with all this air." He reached over, gently brushing his fingers along hers. "You don't owe anyone your healing speed, Amara. Least of all me." "But the kids," she began, but he stopped her, "are already healing because they see us trying, because they feel loved, and love's not perfect, but it shows up." Her eyes shimmered in the soft porch light. "Then, show up tomorrow night." With a tie, he blinked. "Wait, is that—" "The school's fall family gala. Kids want us to go as a real family. They don't want to sit at the separate parent tables anymore." His smile grew. "So, what color are we coordinating?" "Emerald green and cream." He laughed. "You know that's dangerous for me. My fine ass in emerald. Somebody's gonna fall in love." She shook her head, biting back a smile. "Just wear the tie, Darius." The next evening, the school gymnasium glowed under string lights, soft jazz music playing through the speakers as parents mingled, teachers clapped politely, and kids zipped around under tables in bow ties and tiny patent leather shoes. Amara walked in, wearing a satin emerald green dress with cream accents, her curls swept up into an elegant twist. The triplets each had on matching outfits, green ties, little cream suspenders, and brown dress shoes that squeaked when they walked. Then Darius walked in. The room paused, dark emerald tie, fitted charcoal blazer over his broad chest, pants tailored, waves brushed clean. Several moms turned. One audibly sighed. "Daddy, you look fancy," Malaya squealed. "Y'all look like money," he said, taking their hands, and then he turned to Amara. "You are gonna get me arrested," he murmured. I teach kindergarten. You think I haven't heard worse? She teased. They laughed, but something soft glowed between them. When it came time for the family dance, the music slowed. The kids all dragged their parents to the center floor. Micah danced with Amara. Malaya with Darius. Miles ran between them both until he just clung to both their legs and giggled. Then the music changed, something smoother, slower, deeper. Darius looked at Amara. One. She hesitated, then nodded. They moved together like muscle memory. Not rushed, not showy, just them. Her hands found his shoulders. His hands cradled her waist. Remember prom? He asked. You mean when we couldn't afford a limo and walked 6 blocks in heels? I was still the luckiest man there. She looked up at him. And now? Still am. They didn't kiss, not yet, but they didn't need to. Their bodies spoke the language. Their eyes sealed the meaning. But not everyone in the room was clapping. Across the gym, near the refreshment table, Chris, Amara's longtime friend and neighbor, watched with a clenched jaw. He'd helped raise the triplets when she had no one, held her down during late-night fevers and emergency runouts. He had sat in the ER waiting rooms and school fundraisers and babysat for free. He had been there, but he wasn't their father, and now the one man who hadn't been there was standing center stage like he'd earned it all. Chris took a long sip of punch, eyes narrowed. That night, back at the apartment, the kids were out cold, party favors still clutched in their tiny fists. Amara stood at the door as Darius slipped his blazer off. You're really staying the night? She asked. If you'll let me. She nodded. He moved toward her, slow, cautious. They stood inches apart. I want this, he said softly. I want you. All of you. The fights, the stubbornness, the late nights, the quiet moments, the chaos, the healing, everything. Amara didn't speak, but her hand rose to his face, fingers resting on his jaw. And finally, she kissed him, not rushed, not messy, just right. Almost like it had been waiting inside her all this time. Boom! 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 The knock at the door rattled the apartment, jarring Amara from the shallow sleep she'd slipped into on the couch. It was barely 6:30 a.m., the sky outside still gray with sleep. She sat up, heart pounding. Darius stirred on the other end of the sectional, blinking groggily. The kids were still asleep in their room, thank God. Boom, boom. A voice followed, low and unmistakably male. Amara, open the door. We need to talk. She froze. Darius sat up, his posture going rigid. Who the hell is that? Amara already knew. She'd recognized that voice anywhere. Chris, her friend, her ex-confidant, the man who had held the triplets as infants and walked with her through fire, and who hadn't said a word to her since the family gala 4 nights ago. Until now. Another knock, this one faster. Amara, I'm not going to leave until you open this damn door. Stay here, she told Darius quickly, grabbing her robe and cinching it tight. Like hell I'm staying here, he muttered, already rising to follow. She threw him a look. Let me talk to him first. Alone. He paused, jaw tight, but nodded. Amara cracked the door just enough to peer through. Chris stood there in a black hoodie and joggers, dark circles under his eyes, fists clenched. You just gonna pretend I don't exist now? He snapped. After everything? She stepped out and closed the door gently behind her. It's 6 a.m, Chris. I watched that man, your baby daddy, slow dance with you in front of the entire school like he ain't just show up 6 months ago, and I'm the one who helped you raise them. And I'm grateful, she said calmly. But you don't get to demand ownership over my life because you were there when it hurt. That's not how this works. Chris stepped closer. You think he's not gonna run again? That he's just gonna stay, be your husband, a father forever? He left once, Amara. He didn't know, Chris. That's what he says, Chris spat. That's what the DNA says. Silence. Chris's eyes flickered. So you believe him now, just like that? Amara crossed her arms. You knew I loved him. You knew he was their father, and you never told me how you really felt. Not until he came back. Because I was waiting. Hoping. His voice broke. Waiting for the day you'd finally look at me the way you looked at him on that damn dance floor. Amara swallowed. Chris, I love you, but not like that. Not in that way, and I'm sorry if my silence made you think I ever could. Chris looked away. Then finally, with a tight nod, he stepped back. You picked him. I picked my children's future, she said softly. Chris turned, walking off down the hall without another word. Inside, Darius stood by the door, arms crossed, face hard. You okay? Yeah, she sighed, but I don't think Chris is. Darius gave a tight nod. I won't start drama, but I'm not about to be quiet if someone threatens what we're building. He won't come back. But even as she said it, a knot twisted in her chest. Later that week, things seemed to settle. Darius officially filed for joint legal custody. The attorney told them it could take months, but there were no contestations. Everything was moving forward. The triplets flourished. Micah started writing in a superhero journal about his family. Miles created a dance called the Daddy Shuffle, which involved a lot of dramatic hip twisting and sound effects. Malia walked into school one day and declared, I have a mom, a dad, and 2 emotional support brothers. Amara and Darius had begun finding a rhythm, cooking together, alternating story times, sharing chores. It almost felt like a real home, but every joy came with shadow. Diane King was not done. One rainy afternoon, Amara received a thick envelope from a law office. Inside was a letter with a tone colder than steel. Dear Ms. Ellis, as the maternal guardian of the King legacy and estate, I am notifying you of a formal petition to review the custody agreement between my son and your children. It is our position that, due to your former financial instability, absence of formal co-parenting contracts, and previous failure to notify my son of their existence, you are unfit to retain full physical custody. Consider this your notice. Diane L. King. Amara sat in the car staring at the paper for 10 minutes. By the time she walked into the apartment, rain dripping off her coat, her hands were shaking. Darius looked up from the floor, where he was helping Micah sort Legos. What happened? She tossed the letter on the counter. He read it, slowly, then again. She didn't, he whispered. She did. She's suing you for custody? She's suing us, Darius. He sank into a chair, hands gripping his head. I'll handle it. I'll go to her. I'll shut it down. You can't reason with her. You tried that already. She doesn't want compromise. She wants control. Then we fight. Amara stared at him. Are you sure you're ready for that? Because this is where it gets ugly. Darius stood. I wasn't there when you needed someone to fight for you the first time. I'm not making that mistake again. That night, after the kids were asleep, Amara watched Darius sitting at the table, quietly reviewing documents from the lawyer's office. He looked worn, but focused. She walked over, wrapped her arms around him from behind. You okay? Yeah, just angry. At myself. At her. At the fact that she still thinks money gives her ownership over people's lives. You know she's not doing this because she wants the kids, Amara said softly. She's doing it because she can't stand the fact that you chose us over her empire. Then I'll show her just how permanent this choice is. He stood, pulled something out of his jacket, a small velvet box. Amara's eyes widened. Darius, Relax, he smiled. I'm not proposing, yet. This is something else. He opened the box. Inside was a delicate chain with 4 charms, a book, a firefighter's helmet, a heart, and 3 tiny initials. A, he said, pointing. For you. Then M, M, and M. For them. Amara's throat closed up. He slipped it around her neck. No matter what happens in court, no matter what your last name is or what hers is, this is who we are. The courtroom was quiet, too quiet. The thick mahogany walls and polished floors reflected more than wealth. They echoed power, old power, the kind that moved behind closed doors in families like the king's. Amara sat at the plaintiff's table, dressed in a simple black blazer and cream blouse, her back straight, hands folded, a quiet fire behind her eyes. Darius sat beside her, jaw tight, fingers laced together so he wouldn't shake. He had faced raging fires, collapsed buildings, and pulled lifeless bodies from smoke. But this was the hardest thing he'd ever done. Across the aisle sat Diane King, regal as ever, wrapped in a navy blue designer suit, and pearls so pristine they looked carved from moonlight. Her lawyer, a sharp-jawed man in a $1,000 suit, flipped through a stack of documents with cool detachment. The judge entered. Everyone stood. This is the custody petition hearing between Diane King and Amara Ellis, with Darius King as the father of the children in question, the bailiff announced. Amara stared forward. She wasn't afraid anymore, but she was ready to fight. The trial opened with Diane's attorney claiming that Amara had withheld Darius's children from him, thereby putting their well-being at risk by raising them in unstable conditions. He read from reports about the small one-bedroom apartment, Amara's years of financial struggle, her past-due utility notices. It is evident that Ms. Ellis did her best, he said smoothly, but intentions are not a substitute for capability. Then Diane took the stand. I only want what's best for the children, she said, eyes shimmering. I want them to know the world they come from, the opportunities they deserve. And that world includes separating them from their mother? Amara's lawyer asked during cross. Diane's smile tightened. If their mother is unwilling to cooperate with family expectations, then yes. The room buzzed. Darius nearly stood up right then, but Amara grabbed his hand under the table. Not yet, her eyes told him. When it was their turn, Amara took the stand. Her voice was calm, but firm. I raised my children alone, not because I wanted to, because I had to. I thought Darius had abandoned me. I never once told them he was a bad man. I told them the truth I was given. She looked straight at Diane. Your son didn't leave us. You pushed us away. Diane blinked. Objection, speculation, her attorney said. Overruled, the judge said. Let her speak. Amara continued. You didn't just lie to me. You robbed Darius of years he'll never get back. You robbed those children of their father, and now you want to steal them again. This time, permanently. Her voice broke slightly, but she didn't cry. She wouldn't. I'm not perfect, but I am their home. Then came Darius. He rose slowly. His hands didn't tremble as he took the stand. I didn't know I had kids, he said simply. If I had, this would be a different story, but I'm not here to rewrite the past. I'm here to fight for the future. He looked at his mother. When I found out, I came back. Not just for a visit, not just for a birthday. I moved in, I stayed, I gave up the trust fund, the family company, every single dollar I inherited. Why? The judge asked. Darius looked to Amara, then toward the hallway door, where the triplets sat with a court-appointed advocate just outside the room. Because no amount of money matters if I'm not there when they lose their first tooth, or scrape their knee, or have a nightmare. I don't want to be a man who visits his children. I want to be the man they run to." At the end of the hearing, the judge took a deep breath. "This is an unusual case," she said. "Not a custody battle between mother and father, but between mother and grandmother. A grandmother with resources, reputation, legacy." Diane's lips curled in satisfaction. "But legacy doesn't raise children." Her smile froze. "Love does, stability does, and this court finds that Ms. Ellis has provided both. On her own. And now, with Mr. King's full involvement, this family is not fractured, it's healing." Amara gripped Darius's hand. "The court rules in favor of Ms. Ellis. Full physical custody remains with the mother. Mr. Darius King will share legal custody. All petitions for extended visitation or guardianship filed by Ms. Diane King are denied." "This hearing is adjourned." Diane gasped softly. It was the first time anyone had heard her sound human in a long, long time. Outside the courtroom, Amara burst into tears as soon as the doors closed, not out of fear, but release. Darius pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "You did it," he whispered. "We did," she said back. Their lawyer gave a thumbs up and left them to celebrate, but before they could take 2 steps, a small voice behind them said, "Mommy? Daddy?" They turned. The triplets ran full speed toward them, tuxedo pants and patent shoes sliding across the courthouse floor. Malia got there first, wrapping her arms around Amara's legs. "Did we win?" Darius knelt, sweeping all 3 of them into a bear hug. "You always win," he whispered. That evening, the apartment was filled with laughter and music. Takeout boxes covered the coffee table. The kids wore pajamas and paper crowns. Malia made a champion sash for her mom, out of glitter glue and tulle. Micah wore one that said, "King of Family Court." Miles taped construction paper wings to his back and declared himself Guardian Lawyer Angel. Amara finally collapsed onto the couch, her legs tucked under her, glass of wine in hand. Darius sat beside her, exhausted but smiling. "So, what now?" he asked. She looked around. "Now we live. No more running, no more court dates, no more fear." He nodded, then leaned close, voice low. "What if I said I don't just want to live with you? I want to build everything with you. Forever." Her eyes met his. "I'd say, you're about to propose without a ring again." He reached into his hoodie pocket. This time there was a ring. Simple, elegant, with 3 tiny stones beside the main diamond. "One for each of them," he said softly. "You serious?" "Dead serious." Amara looked at the ring, then at the man who had crawled through fire, real and emotional, to be here. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "Yes." And for the first time in years, everything felt whole. Here comes the end of the story. If you're interested in Season 2, comment Mr. Hope, Season 2.